Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for July 18, 2016. We'll begin with the special order calendar. Continued hearing items. Item number 1, 472-37BZ, 2765 Cropsey Avenue, Brooklyn.
They wanted an adjournment on this?
Item number 2, 19649BZ, 1280 Allerton Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, I think they were responsive to our concerns, I think. The planting area was installed between the residential lot and the parking. The tires moved inside, and the plan was revised to show the landscaping, and apparently the website no longer offers U-Haul rentals. So I'm okay if everyone else is okay.
I'm okay. Commissioner Otley Brown wanted just to have photographs of the entire site.
Yeah, the entire site.
The racks had been removed and there was no graffiti. So we should have, I guess, an updated.
Yeah, except I would like to have that done immediately so we don't have to delay and put this on yet for another hearing. So if that can be done literally today by the owner who walks around with his phone and sends it to council, that would be the best solution. Okay. What? No, architect.
Oh, you're sending it to him? No, send it
No, to send it, no, send it to submit. I mean, it's architect, oh, you mean the applicant is an architect?
The applicant is an architect.
Okay, so send it to the architects, right, no, I didn't mean that council, I meant the client's council.
Yeah.
Jessica, are you going to do that?
Yeah.
You for rock group today? Yeah. Okay.
No, but you don't have to go there yourself, you could just have the owner walk around, do a 360, take pictures, and send them to you, and then you send them to submit.
They'll come from that.
Okay, yes, good. Good. Next.
Item number 3, 20262BZ, 950 Allerton Avenue, the Bronx.
They submitted a landscaping plan for our review, which we had directed them to do to make sure we're okay prior to install. That includes the shrubs planted along the inside perimeter of the site, as we requested it though, but it doesn't shield the parking area because they said there's no place to put it. I'm not sure if that's so okay, and if it would eliminate parking spaces. I'd like others to speak to that. And they'll also, once they proceed with the landscaping, they'll make all of the other changes that are referred to at the hearings, and I'd like the applicant to go through what those changes are, because it's been a long time since we first started talking about this. Anybody else?
I was looking at the plan to see if there was an alternative to shielding the parking along Paulding, and if that, I mean, it does affect all the 5 parking spaces because they're in an angular kind of layout. Maybe the planting can be taken as far up to the parking space. Even that would be a significant improvement. And if that can be achieved without having to relocate the parking along Paulding, maybe that's something I would like to hear, see if that's possible.
And an opaque fence, or a fence with...
I think I'm hesitant on that because the moment that happens, then that leads to graffiti, and so unless it's a nice fence, wrought iron fence kind of thing, which can be very expensive, which I'm not sure it's something that we want to.
Could also be a fence where maybe there are lines that creep up the fence, something like that.
Yeah.
So how about a fence? Okay.
I didn't really have an issue. I mean, I think the idea of bringing it up to the parking would be, up to the first spot. They could add a few more trees, but it really doesn't adjoin a residential use. It adjoins a public street. So I didn't really feel that needed the buffering there.
Okay, well, that's in terms of a sound buffering, but in terms of a visual improvement,
Yeah.
that's where I'm thinking fence with vines. There's probably enough planting area. You can get the vines started where there's soil. And then continue.
Commissioner Otley Brown just wanted the owner to pay special attention to the corner of Allerton and Williamsbridge Road because it's very overgrown and there are temporary signs. So they need to make sure that those don't come back into the equation.
What,
There are temporary signs, I guess, that he's got on the corner
Allerton and what?
and Williamsbridge.
So, but those are notes that we have from before, you know, about cleaning up and replacing fencing and all of that. So we're going to go over at the hearing all of the improvements that need to be made, because we talked about it a long time ago. Okay.
Item number 4, 52864BZ, 24002 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
So we need a landscaping plan with specifications on the types and numbers of plantings that will buffer the site from the adjoining properties. The plantings should actually be installed, I think, and photos shown to show that prior to our making a decision. The strip along Almeida seems to go past the property line, which of course it can't do unless they explain how it can. They should provide plans, because the plants are in tiny scale, so you actually can't tell a lot about what's going on. The plans should be in a larger scale to show us the planting areas, and the plantings really should entirely wrap the site wherever it's adjacent to residential or park uses, and it should densely buffer the view. I was looking a lot about, so from the aerial view from Google, you can see really how the site is used. And so it's absolutely packed with cars, packed. And there's an area on the site plan labeled asphalt parking without any parking spaces shown in it, but when you look in the aerial photograph, it's packed with cars. So I don't understand why that space wouldn't be meeting the needs not shown on the drawings of this parking deck instead. So what I read that is, this would be an opportunity to add even more cars to the site than are already parked on the site, because that asphalt area is already used for parking, and I just think it's too much. And also, it's there, so we don't have a plan that shows where the cars will park definitively, and how the site will be furnished to prevent parking where it's not otherwise permitted. So again, on the aerial photos, you see them parking on the sidewalks, on every imaginable piece of space, even though that's not on property. There needs to be bollards to prevent sidewalk parking, all of that. So this needs a lot more work to manage the site, it seems to me. I'd also like to know, so far I'm not persuaded at all it needs an elevated deck, but I'd like to know what its relationship is to the residential uses, and what the proposed use is underneath the deck, which is obviously more parking, but it doesn't tell us that. And there should be a section that goes through the buildings and the site in both directions, because it's very steeply sloped, so you kind of can't tell sort of what the sight lines are to the residential uses. I just feel like this is putting cars like right at the level of the house next door's eyeballs, you know. Also, it's not shown on the drawings, but in the photos, it's very clear that there's a trailer structure sitting on top of the building, right, that's sort of the roof of the building that is being proposed to be extended with the parking deck. So that's taking up parking spaces too. That structure is not shown on any drawings. Is it temporary? What's it for? And then the plans, even though there is a circulation plans, the plans don't show, as we asked them to, where the employees park versus the used car parking versus the new car parking. There's no proposal for preventing parking on the sidewalk in front of the showroom, which we see is happening. And then it's also, they talk about how that new deck is just for employees. We talked about this last time. There's only 17 employees and far more spaces than that, so it's got to be for other purposes.
I think it's for employees and customer parking. That's what
But so the circulation plan doesn't get customers way back
Right,
there.
and that's, yeah, and the way it's shown in the plan, it looks like someone will have to, it has to be an attendant parking kind of situation. It's not a self-parking.
Yeah, you can't
Right.
get back there unless
Right.
you
So
are an employee.
that's also not clear where the vehicle get dropped off
Yeah.
by a customer or even by an employee for it to be then moved to that upper deck area. That needs to be clearly identified in the plan as to where the drop-off is and if there is enough space or so that it doesn't back up into the traffic.
Into the street. Right, okay. And then we also asked for photos to be taken from the residential areas. There was a comment at the community board about drainage issues. What is that? We asked them to explain that. And also, there's this traffic sensor that was supposed to be installed, and I don't know where it is, needs to be shown. We need a lighting plan. They need to show curb cuts. We asked for that before. And we asked for that, the last hearing was in November, so there's been a lot of time between the last hearing and this one. With respect to the signage, we also discussed at the last hearing that the board doesn't have the authority to grant a variance for signage unless the 5 findings are made for a variance. So the only way that I can understand this is that some of the signs may have been grandfathered under the pre-1961 variances, and to the extent that they can establish those grandfathered signs exceed the allowable signage regulations, then they can keep those because they're arguably grandfathered. But we certainly can't increase the degree of noncompliance or nonconformance with respect to the signs. And then, that was it for me.
The applicant makes some conclusory statements concerning the purchase of new and used cars and how many cars they need, to have in the showroom, and they don't really give us any backup of the Chevrolet standards. They just simply talk about that Chevrolet has some standards, but they don't give us anything that tells us from Chevrolet what those standards are. Definitely need to have some definition of the landscaping in detail and fencing, what's proposed. It wasn't very clear to me at all where they're putting fencing or not putting fencing. We had asked them to install or to at least show some landscaping in front to prevent people, I guess, and also with bollards to prevent people from actually getting up onto the sidewalk and parking there. Which I could see is probably something that happens because it's hard to get in the back. They should add maybe some no parking signs as well on the sidewalk. It was also unclear to me how many spaces the applicant is actually accounting for. In that three-dimensional rendering that they had, they show cars underneath the deck, but they don't actually talk about those cars underneath the deck. They talk about that the deck is only going to have 33 cars or something like that. But in reality, they're really creating an area that has twice as many. And as you said, there are also there's that asphalted area that's also covered with cars. So it's not clear to me exactly why they need so much space. And if indeed this is, a Chevrolet standard of some kind, they need to explain that and to show us that they're not permitted to have a Chevrolet dealership unless they conform to some of these standards, and it doesn't appear that that's so. They also need to complete their chart for the comparable showrooms. I think it was incomplete. So that was it for me.
Okay. I read that they thought that they said that there were 14 employees on site, but, right off the bat, there's 16 repair bays, and you would think there'd be 16 mechanics plus. So I don't understand where they came up with 14 employees. They say that there were only 2 service personnel on site, so that doesn't make sense. And the applicant keeps saying that they're in compliance with the prior grants and, you know, they're not providing parking for customers or employees, which was a requirement of the prior grant, and their landscaping is definitely not in compliance. The prior grant required dense plantings with sizable trees. They have the sizable trees, but there's no dense plantings. And they're also, on the prior approved plans, is a 5-foot wide planting strip along a portion of Northern Boulevard where it comes around the curve to Alameda. So, and the residential properties are higher in elevation than this area. And besides putting in some sort of a wall screening, the new proposed parking, I think it should go along the whole rear wall.
Yes.
And make sure that it screens the cars from the residential properties. That was about it.
The site also has another entrance from 234th Street, which was not clearly discussed as part of the operational or the circulation plan. So I would like to know what that entrance is used for. And the plan, the text talks about that it's 2 stories. The plan that was, we only have a 1-story building, and again, I think a section definitely will help clarify actually how many stories there are in this space, and specifically in the plan identify the exact operation in these covered spaces under the deck, asphalt area, all of that needs to be clearly indicated. I also have concerns with the landscaping and lack of landscaping, especially if you have this deck. I mean, not only with the existing asphalt area that's on the ground floor, I don't think there is an adequate buffer there. That needs to be provided. In addition to that, should even we be considering a deck above if this additional parking space, vehicular storage area is needed, then we do need much more a thorough landscaping plan along that, because I think that would be pretty much at the same elevation as the building, and the lights from the cars or even the any of the lighting system, it's going to significantly affect the residences along Hanford Street. So we definitely need a better understanding, and the section will help. The rendering that was provided, the 3D rendering, was helpful. That's a good start. I think it would be helpful if we can get some sections that cuts through not just the property but also the residential, so that we have a better sense of the geological terrain. Along Northern Boulevard, that particular frontage, that is used for parking right now. And if number of used cars, showroom and all of that is going to be reduced, hopefully we can also use those places as potential more landscaping, if that's possible. So I think those are my concerns at this point.
Okay. You know, I was thinking that this deck is actually more akin to an application for rooftop parking.
Yes.
Right, which is a whole other application. And, you know, we've had a recent case where we struggled about the relationship of rooftop parking to residential uses, and we're not happy with it. So, you know, there's a lot, I think what's happening here is the applicant is relying on the fact that the property owner on Hanford has a really large property, and sort of taking advantage of that owner's landscaping and large backyard, but that's not necessarily how it will always be. And I don't think it's actually appropriate to take advantage of the layout on the residential property. So, did you have comments from Commissioner?
She had similar comments to mine, so
Oh, okay.
put it all together.
Good. Okay.
Item number 5, 120766BZ, 305 Washington Avenue, Brooklyn.
So this one, I'm pleased to say that they did install the sprinklers in the bookstore as we requested, and they provided photos and sign-offs of the DOB inspections that show a pass. And I believe the fire department should be okay with this. So I think this is really great because it's now a much safer building with these combined uses. Anybody else?
New cases, item number 6, for 1350 BC, 691 East 149th Street, the Bronx.
This one I actually didn't have many comments, or any really. The site looks clean from photos anyway. And I just was curious, they have these concrete platforms on which they place the air pumps or the air machines, whatever. And there are 2 that don't seem to be used, and I'm wondering if they're abandoned or there is an intention for their future use. They're just these 2 concrete blocks next to the air pumps. So aren't they just kind of in the way of circulation, or is there a plan to use them for something like a vacuum, or I don't know?
I just wanted to know if the 2 parking spaces are striped, because I did see in multiple photos a truck and a car along the rear lot line and not where their assigned parking spaces were.
Okay.
I had a question, and that was more of a clarification. The current lot, the subject lot where the gas station is lot 140, which, tax lot 140, which also includes the fenced area, and that's not subject to the BSA action. So, and that's for car sales, and that's located along Trinity. So I just want to make sure that the plan and the text is very clear about that.
Sorry, so you're saying it's
So
a
it's-
larger
Yeah,
site plan?
The tax lot 140 includes a portion of a fenced area which has car sales, that's accessible from Trinity, which is not part of the gas station. That's my understanding. So we just need to be very clear in the text and also in the statement about that as to,
And that's an allowable use, car sales?
I think from the prior BSA actions, it seems it was. So
Okay, so we need the applicant to clarify the relationship between the car sales area, whether that's a use that's allowable or grandfathered, or it's a BSA action and it's on something else. I don't know. Okay.
and the fence in the rear, that needs a little bit of a repair.
It needs repair. Okay.
Item number 7, 30208 BC, 43668 Furman Avenue, the Bronx, this is the remand case.
Okay, since the appellate division has determined that the A finding has been met, we only need to look at the other findings, principally the B finding. With respect to the economic analysis, there doesn't seem to be any mention of the fact that an 11-foot wide structure would never be able to accommodate 3 dwelling units and arguably wouldn't be marketable at all. So I'll wait for Commissioner Otley Brown's comments, but I actually found the financials to be sort of an odd approach of taking the floor area that's in the building, multiplying that by construction costs, and then finding out how much that floor area would sell for, and finding out it would sell for less, naturally, because it's less floor area, but never mentioning that you would never be able to rent it to anybody because it wouldn't fit anything. It's an 11-foot wide building. The staircase takes up the whole building. So I just don't understand that approach on the financials. It seems to me it could have been much simpler. And then with respect to neighborhood character, which we do need to find, just across the street are 2 to 3 family, 3-story attached that are similar to the project. And it's located it's located adjacent to 6-story multiple dwellings, which seems to be kind of characteristic of this neighborhood where you get high and low next to each other. And then, and you see that on other blocks in the area. Anybody else?
I can be Dara.
Yeah, Dara.
She says, there is a set of plans that are called complying plans that show the entire zoning lot and have it appear like one building with 6 apartments.
That
Address
was
this in the statement.
with, yeah, okay, that was withdrawn, right?
Yeah, we've said, put that in the void folder.
That was
Yeah,
voided, it's
yeah.
actually, the as of right is an 11-foot wide
Yeah.
Yes.
attach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and pulled, that was in the one that we now consider the as of right was sort of buried in a submission from 2009. We pulled it out and sort of put it front and center so the board can see this is what we're
Right.
considering.
For the financials, she says vacant land sales are from different zoning without adjustments for zoning and do not divide, did not divide by developable square feet. It is only divided by physical square feet of land, which doesn't address the relative densities. Residential apartment comparables are 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom of varying square footages. It is used to calculate the gross income for both scenarios, even though the smaller as-of-right building likely has 1-bedroom apartments and the larger proposed building has 3-bedroom apartments. They should either address why this is appropriate or find 3-bedroom comparables for the proposed building. Income and mortgage equity analysis. Mortgage at 9%, which is high for current times, but they should provide references to support that it was appropriate for 2008. Why did you assume a 15-year mortgage in the debt service coverage analysis? A lower mortgage interest rate and a 30-year mortgage term would lead to lower annual debt service payments, which would leave a higher return on equity. Construction costs are lower per square foot for the larger building. Please explain why.
Oh, that one I could explain.
That enter comment.
Okay. All right, the way that this financial analyst does their square footage costs is they have a cost estimator estimate how much to build each building, and then it's totaled, and then the total is the number, and then they take that number and they divide it by the number of square feet in the project, and that gives you the square foot project cost. But that's not what we're used to seeing, where it's like it's $300 a square foot. Everybody pays $300 a square foot. But this is more like what happens when you do the math based on the specifics of the project. So that's what we've got. I find that confusing. Okay.
Appeals calendar, 3 decision items, 300 OAA, 3935 27th Street.
Still waiting for Best Squad.
Still waiting for that to sign on.
Just doesn't write.
New cases, item number 9, 2016-4129A and 2016-4130A, 72 and 74 Harris Lane.
So I note that the community board voted to disapprove this with a lot of comments. The fire department approved with a whole bunch of conditions that we can go over. And then my comments, though, well, so they should respond to the community board issues, and let's hear what they have to say about them. I'd like to know whether the fire department's conditions that were listed in its June 16th letter are shown on the plans. I believe they are.
The June 16th letter, they're revisiting the application. There was a question, because I had asked for clarification about the parking, because based on what the community board had raised an issue. So they're revisiting the application.
They as in fire department?
Fire department is,
Okay.
yes. So they're going to submit something else. It was something about the, part of the driveway was required for fire department access. So there was an easement thing that they were looking at.
Okay, because I actually had a question about that too. Another comment is, we need a restrictive declaration to commit the property owners to the no parking restriction.
Yeah, they don't have an issue about the parking.
Okay, but then
Neighbors.
I have a problem with the access, maybe this is the same question, that's being provided to the site from Bloomingdale Road, which is a map street. The survey shows that there was this easement area granted, And they even provided a copy of the easement that apparently matches the survey, though I didn't look at the meets and bounds. But the access road that they're showing on their drawing seems to rely on a portion of property that's not owned by the applicant, and it's not in the shaded area that's called easement area. So as far as I can tell, is they're driving right over private property to get there, and I don't
Well, that's
see how
one
they
of
do
the-
that.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And also, they should show no parking signs on the site plan. Anybody else?
I had that question too about the size of the lot compared to where the road was, because it appears that the lots actually end sort of 3/4 of the way into Harris Lane, and who maintains the other side, and who owns the other side? Could they possibly build it out, and then thereby making Harris Lane much narrower than it is now? So
Unless
that is
there's an
very
easement.
clear, unless
There's a
an easement.
declaration of easement that has been provided. It wasn't submitted.
But
to
it doesn't correspond with what the
No.
actual,
Yeah, you look,
what it looks like in reality.
no, so they have this thing that they call a 15-foot right-of-way, and I don't know what that is, and that's shown because they didn't provide any support for it, and I don't know how far down it goes. Then there's the easement that they describe that's described in there is an easement provided, a written easement, and then the surveyor draws the easement area and shades it in and says, this is the shaded in area that's granted by this easement document, right? But if you look at the shaded in area, that only accounts for some of the access. The rest of it most of it falls on the subject property, and then a piece of it falls on a neighbor. You can't make a turn without it. So I don't think it's so much this guy across here, we don't really care, because that's the road.
But there was an approval in
Right, but the
98,
road
there was an
actually-
approval in 98 for the area of Crabtree and Bloomingdale of the fire department, so I think that's what they threw in there.
Right, yeah, but if you don't have the right to drive on somebody's land because there's no easement, what are you supposed to do?
Use the easement for the.
But that's not in, it's not in that easement, is the point. According to the survey, I don't know. I didn't sit there and chart out the easement
Yeah.
area and the description, because that's really hard to do. Okay.
It also
Let's
looked
get a
to me
map.
like
Show
the
us,
adjacent
like a plan,
house
just show
on
us.
Harris Lane, in front, they park in front of the storage shed. And the storage shed is going to be removed, so I just
where
want to
does
know
that
where their parking is going to be located.
Okay.
Are they going to lose their parking spot?
Yeah, that's true, there's a car there.
Okay. Anybody?
No, I think
No?
those were.
Okay. And did Dara have it? No?
I don't think so. The next one is 15214.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Zoning calendar decision items, item number 10, 30-14 BZ, 6101 16th Avenue, Brooklyn.
We still have air quality and traffic issues to resolve.
Oh,
Oh?
also bus parking during the day, because I was driving down 16th Avenue last Wednesday, and right in front of the school, there were double-parked buses with no drivers in them. And across the street, there was a truck park, so all the traffic on 16th Avenue, which is a busy street, had to go through, in turn on one lane. So, I mean, I think we had asked them, where are they going to park the buses?
Right. And you got your answer.
Right. Well, I was stuck in the traffic trying to get by, so I was annoyed.
That was annoying. Okay. Okay, so we may, I mean, this is closed, but we're going to need to reopen to discuss this.
I think that was one of the open issues, though, bus parking.
Okay. I'm not sure. Yeah, right. So I need to check, but I thought that they had told us where they're going. So,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're not
There
doing
was something,
that.
there was something in the record prior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a discussion about this, I just don't
Right.
recall what it was.
right. Okay.
Item number 11, 26914BZ, 8944 Metropolitan Ave, Queens.
Okay, so they provided this circulation diagram, which I'm still not convinced about. It shows only 14 feet for 2 cars to bypass at the entry egress. Even the diagram shows that only 1 car at a time can pass. I mean, if you're going to show that 2 cars can pass, put 2 cars in your diagram. And that doesn't take into account the parallel parked cars that need to get in and out. And while they're doing that, that will hold up access to the parking area and create traffic on Aubrey. So I think they should either stay at 10 parking spaces or maybe eliminate 2 or 3 of the parallel spaces on one side of that entry. So this is a legalization, and they said that their fire alarm application was denied, which I don't understand. The building plans were filed and approved and built. So why wasn't the alarm filed under the same use? It actually seems to be filed under the same use because BIS says that there's no change in use or egress, occupancy or egress. So I actually don't understand why they would have been denied. Anybody else on this? Okay.
Item number 12, 2115BZ, 112-3569th Avenue, Queens.
They put in the required setbacks and they corrected the yards
Good.
on the plans.
So we're good.
Yes.
Item number 13, 20415BZ, 98-100 10th Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay, there's a July 14th letter from Fire Department that they're okay with the current status of the fire alarm system, which is being inspected and is operational, and now that it's in their roster books, they know that it's there. They did show us that they passed a sprinkler inspection, and they got a revised objection. Apparently it had been the wrong objection. Anybody else? Okay.
Continued hearing items, item number 14, 33013BZ, 2801 Brown Street, Brooklyn.
They requested an adjournment.
Item number 15.
Oh, but I did want to say they requested an adjournment, because I don't know if anyone's here from this, but rather than just adjourn it, they're going to be modifying this application somehow or other to include a variance, and I really want the applicant to meet with staff to discuss it, because the variance is, let's just say, not,
The findings will be difficult.
they're, like she said. Yes,
Challenging.
yes. Okay.
So did you want to take it off calendars?
No, well, no, it's more that if we adjourned it, they're asking for a late adjournment, but I want to make sure that they meet with staff to understand, get a reality check on actually filing this as a variance.
Item number 15, 15214BZ, 673 Driggs Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So we did ask for a lot of information at the last hearing, one of which was why the as-of-right is different from the proposed in terms of, for instance, the cellar plan layout, like why, I don't know why it's different, and why the first floor isn't built full in the as-of-right version. With that one, perhaps the answer, but it's not clear from the statement of facts. I think it forces you to make your own leap to this, is that the applicant doesn't believe that Landmarks Commission would approve a shorter building. Maybe that's the reason that they didn't extend on the first floor, but I don't know. They did modify the stairs. We talked about how the stairs were a really inefficient layout, but more importantly, that we weren't sure that it met fire code, because the stairs wrap around the elevator. The original proposal stairs, fire stairs, wrap around an elevator. So they did modify the stairs, but it doesn't seem to have improved efficiency particularly. No, it's not that the rooms provide more room for kids or, so it's like stacking two fire stairs, one behind the other, and that seems to take up space in another way. What I'd like to know, though, is there's still that second means, which requires you to go through a classroom in order to egress. And I always learned
Can't go through an
that you can't go through an occupied space for egress. So either fire department or the Department of Buildings needs to weigh in on that. I actually don't think they have two legal means. The certificate of appropriateness also doesn't mention, well, I found this so difficulty in the last application, in the last hearing, where they have this rooftop play area, and lifted above the play area is a grill. And sitting on the grill, like sort of like a sidewalk grill, is mechanical equipment. And so that raises it up really high. So effectively, it's another floor of things sitting up high. And I looked at the certificate of appropriateness, and there's no mention of that there. So I'd like to know, was Landmarks aware of this? Best way of explaining that is to show us the LPC-approved drawings. So fire department signed off on the roof access issues, but I'm not sure that I understand how come. So what I'm thinking is the ladder truck goes to this grill, this grate, and then the firemen walk on the grating like a catwalk, and then they go down a ladder, and then they find that okay, even though there is no railings or anything on the catwalk, as far as I could tell, which I don't think is also legal, which then raises the apparent height of catwalk and everything even more, which Landmarks for sure didn't see, because we didn't see it. So I don't think that part's worked out. They did take off the protective barriers above the parapet. So those were plexiglass before, they took them away, and now it's some kind of thing that's called transparent mesh protective fencing.
I'm not sure I know what that
mean? What kind of material is that?
And that supposedly allowed them to reduce the floor area on the roof,
Right.
because they reduced it by over 800 square
Oh.
feet.
I didn't notice,
Yeah.
okay.
So if they could explain that.
Yeah, and then to add to that, because the catwalks sit on top of the framing that the mesh is attached to, they have to be, their structure, they're not mesh, right? And so it's different than just supports for a fence, it's actually supporting effectively a floor. And so I'm thinking, well, haven't they created a floor?
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of like the deck on that parking lot. It's, that space below the deck is not counted towards the floor area, same thing. This is just like, there's a fence here and there's the grate here. Rest of this is open, it's that same rule, it's kind of, but it doesn't.
Maybe they should supply us with a section through it, or, to see exactly what their intention is. It was
Yeah.
really, for me, it was hard to tell
Yes.
exactly what they intended.
I agree. And, because they gave us a while ago a rendering of the play deck, but then they've changed what it is, because now there's this catwalk that seems to cover a good portion of it. So actually, the children are looking up at a catwalk. So I'm not sure that they have it in some strange way created an enclosed floor area. Right, so,
No, it's kind of like the
solid.
trellis, it's like trellis almost.
Yeah, if it's not a solid
Yeah, it's not a solid structure.
wall.
But we
Yeah,
don't
but
really know
supports-
what it,
Yeah,
what
I
it's
supports
actually.
without
knowing what it
area.
is, it's hard to
Yeah.
say, but I feel like if it's an open grate,
yeah.
that's not
50%
floor area, right? I
open.
mean,
But
yeah,
then,
50%, yeah.
right,
There-
Right,
yeah,
if it's
there's-
not 50%, if it's more than 50%, they're in trouble, right? So they need to
Is that,
clarify exactly
and maybe,
what that, and I'm
but
stretching
Sherry,
the
you may know
definition a
this.
bit, aren't I? So,
Is
so
is that in the zoning, or is
No.
that a rule of, I think that's like a rule
Rule
of
of
thumb,
thumb,
right?
yeah.
It's just
Well,
like,
remember
Yeah.
Columbia
The zoning
Grammar?
no,
talks
actually,
about
no,
the-
it is.
Columbia Grammar?
Yeah,
They
we
had
had
the
that at Columbia
rooftop
Grammar.
play area, and it was counted as floor area because of just the supports required.
So we,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
we've
They're
we've
pretty
seen this
strict on this.
before, so I think we
Okay.
need to just make sure that, they sort of fall within the guidelines of what we
I feel like
actually
if rain can get in it.
Well,
That's not a standard.
yeah, really.
I mean, maybe the DOB has to make these calls.
Yes.
But,
Well, so that's part of the point is, so we're confused, we don't know the answer.
Right, yeah.
And we're not the ones who make the call about whether it's floor area,
Floor,
Department of
right,
Buildings is. Plus, we're not the ones who make the call about whether that that egress is compliant. DOB does, so they have some work at DOB. I mean, that would be, that's what they should do. So, okay, and then in terms of, so they were saying, because we had talked about this before, if you just had fencing, the fencing is a permitted obstruction, right? But as soon as they turned the fence into sort of this structure to support catwalks, I'm not sure you're still in that permitted obstruction range, in which case now the maximum base height is much higher, the waiver for that is higher. And then, so if the rendering could be modified or at least provide us sketches and sections. Just a note, there's an error in the statement of facts that describes the function on the third floor. It was a cut and paste thing, so that they're not the same on both floors. The DOB objections, there was a very strange note that said, since we filed this, there's been a change in the zoning resolution, and now the sections for which we got the objections have been superseded by this other completely different section. Now it's in the residential. So they think that they don't need to get a revised objection?
Our policy on this is that if only the section number changes, then what we ask for is just an index of what the old section number and what the new section number is.
But the section number, it went to a different chapter.
But if it's
Maybe the same text.
it may be the same text. They moved things around. If there's substantive
It went from
changes,
community facility text, now it's in the residential text.
there may be
Yeah,
that.
because of the
Yeah,
whole-
ZQA did some things
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
no,
Yes.
Right, so,
But if the regulations themselves are the same, if it's the exact same height and other things that are changed, we have,
But the burden is on the applicant
Yes.
to demonstrate that.
explain
with
Yes.
An explanation.
Yeah.
A table showing the comparison.
Exactly.
sure,
Oh.
sure.
And
corresponding the
Right.
past and the new one.
We don't necessarily know unless somebody points it out that there is a substantive change.
We have actively asked them to go through and look for these changes,
yeah.
and, yeah, we have.
DOB will know.
Yeah. Because we do need a new objection if there's substance
Yeah,
change.
exactly.
That's,
But I'm even curious, so we waive this section, which is in a totally different chapter, right?
We'll make note of it in the resolution that we're waiving the new section, the objection that was requested
Okay.
was for the old one. And the
Okay.
plan should reflect that the section has been changed to make it very clear.
Okay. All right. Then, the couple of things. The traffic consultant did an analysis and recommended a drop-off zone be created on Driggs Avenue. That should absolutely be pursued, but we received there's a number of community members who are interested in this project, and we've had submissions from them before, but we received one this morning that reminded us about the Pod Hotel that is opening down the street that has many, many rooms, and because it's opening in just a couple of months, that should have been in the build and no-build scenario in terms of pedestrian and traffic, because the concern at this site is you've got 77 kids arriving, and how are they getting to school and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know if the pod was included.
so this didn't trip a threshold, so then there would have been no analysis that accounted for them.
It didn't trip a threshold.
Yeah.
Okay, so but what do we do about sort of the reality of the question,
But
right?
we did send this to the school review, school safety review, and their response, I believe there was a letter in there, that they recommended this pickup and drop off.
Okay.
But the practice at DOT is that they have this, the borough engineer has to really do an evaluation sort of as it gets closer to the time to open.
Okay, and then with respect to the noise analysis, I know that DEP has asked them to revise the noise analysis, but one of the things that I was concerned about was they've taken away the plexiglass enclosures, which they didn't speak about in the prior application as being partly for noise attenuation purposes, but it had that effect of noise attenuation. And then they used a noise study based on another school, and we don't know where that playground is located, if it's at grade, if it's on the roof, and if it was appropriate that they take the noise tests from the sidewalk level as opposed to effectively a receptor, you know, a window across the street or something, because that's what we're talking about, a sight line.
It's currently under review.
Okay. So, but you'll let DEP know about the removal of the plexiglass barrier, right?
Well, they usually judge it on the project as it is, so I don't think they they did not review the old version. Only when they removed the plexiglass fence, I was concerned, so that's when.
So you told them, okay, good, okay. Anybody else?
Commissioner Otley Brown has got some notes. Under uniqueness, the new area study should have a map accompanying it so we can see where the lots are located. The statement of facts and findings does not detail how the small size impacts the feasibility negatively. It is not enough to say small lot, less rent potential, because that is true across the board everywhere. They should incorporate the discussion and table in the financials that shows it's not just small size, less rent, but it talks about the small floor plate that is taken up by the core and non-program spaces, which not only leads to less rent, but ripples throughout the financials, resulting in less feasibility for an investment standpoint. Character. It is still the case that outdoor roof access recess sessions will begin at 8:30 a.m. and last until 3 p.m. That's a question. Current statement doesn't mention this. Financials. The report has some minor issues. Interchangeably, it uses 1,658 square feet and 1,661 square feet. Please reconcile. Site value. Comparables are adjusted for zoning with R6 and R6C2 comps, getting a negative adjustment of -15% and -20% to account for development potential in terms of FAR. But the paragraph above, I think that's what she means, that says the prices are drilled down to available building area square footage to account for FAR differences in zoning. So why adjust the table also? I can have land use comparables chart is still, sorry, she meant something else, but and adjustable only if it accounts for use differentials like R6 and C2 versus R6B. Land use comparables, next thought, chart is still missing the unadjusted price per square foot, and the information in the chart is not lining up with the row headers. Page 6 of the financial state, 7,504 gross building area for the proposed. It should be 7,304 square feet. Please correct.
I just felt that, like, deleting the profit and loss of the school made a lot more sense.
Yes.
Now it's just based on community facility comps, and
Right.
it's much better.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, I think this submission kind of helped me understand the program better, the traffic analysis. I'm not sure satisfied with that.
Okay. Okay.
Item number 16, 33114BZ, 2171 Ocean Parkway, Brooklyn.
So with this one, I didn't find that the applicant responded to any of our concerns about the massing of the building, so I don't have any other comments. They didn't respond. Anybody else?
Well, after visiting the site, I did think that there are a number of three-story buildings on Ocean Parkway, and I felt that the three-story building is justified in terms of it complies with the zoning resolution, and I believe that they made it an R4 to sort of complement the scale of Ocean Parkway and the size of the front yard. So I didn't have an issue with that. I did have an issue with the second floor layout, which is basically one huge master bedroom suite. It just seemed rather excessive to me.
Okay. Just a point that a lot of those buildings on Ocean Parkway are illegal, which we talked about last time, and I found a few more.
Some of them are, but actually, even, some of them are illegal because of building out at the rear. But in terms of the height and the three-story character, that is legal along Ocean Parkway.
Oh, I see. So you're looking at the height, that if you were a legal building, you could have built to that height.
Right, and from looking
Even
at some of the illegal, the violations from the other homes, like the one next door, most of them had to do with
The rear yard.
The rear yard enlargement.
Okay.
Oh, it's R5, sorry, I said R4.
It's because the back portion is actually R4.
That's true,
That
but
last
the
5 feet.
character of the building is actually R5, which is even,
It has a higher
right, yes.
overall height.
Okay.
17, item number 17, 7115 BZ, 548 West 22nd Street, Manhattan.
We're adjourning this?
Item number 18, 9315 BZ, 1011 Reed's Lane, Queens.
Okay, so the building was shifted now so that there is one 3-foot side yard and one 7-foot side yard. Before it was 5 and 5 on each side. And the access to the women's entrance is now along the 7-foot side yard more to the rear of the building, so they go into the rear yard. I don't know the reason, but I'm assuming the shift was to improve the circulation for the women's entrance, but also now that they show on the plans the location of the neighboring houses, it was also, I think, to pull away from the houses close to the side lot and where the other house is further away from the side lot, so it can handle those issues. What I did notice is that in terms of the drawing technique, the dimension numbers are lost in the shrubs. So slide the dimension number so you can read it, otherwise DOB will have no idea what the approved widths are. The front ramp was removed and an elevator was installed at the interior that goes to the cellar. The building height was reduced significantly from 29 feet to from 35 feet to 29 feet, which had an enormous impact on the improvement of the massing. They now show the occupancy in the multipurpose room in the cellar, which we asked them to do, 190 people. They did show landscaping along the two side lot lines, but I don't know why they didn't continue it along the rear. I didn't understand.
Or the front.
Or the fence. They talk about the
Yeah.
acoustic fence, but they only have it on either side, I guess, of where the residential is, but not at the rear, which
Yeah.
I would think you'd want to have that too.
Right.
So-
So the shrubs need to go all the way around. There needs to be a landscaping plan that tells you the minimum height and number of the shrubs, and then, or the spacing, 5 feet on center, or whatever is typical for that shrub, and to be clear that the attenuating fence goes all the way around.
I'd like to know what the attenuating fence
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
some details.
And they don't actually show any real landscaping, I think, in the front yard as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just kind of open, so it's not even clear what that is. It's like,
I just had some
concrete.
concerns about them getting into the 3-foot space to maintain those shrubs. You know, along the, I guess it's the north side yard, that they have to be.
Very skinny landscapers.
Right.
Skinny landscapers. Right. Not sure how they work that out. Because eventually those shrubs will have a diameter where you won't go to the side. Or if you do, you get like a really small child to do that.
And then you have child labor laws,
Right.
it's a problem.
The building needs to be fully sprinklered, it's not showing that. And we also asked, as we do on all of these applications where there's a parking waiver included, that they provide parking studies which show the counts of the available parking spaces during peak hours of attendance when people might drive. So not on Friday night and not on Saturday, but certainly there are times when people might drive. And then also to talk about the impact of pedestrians who are coming out of the institution and going onto the sidewalk. They need to talk about that, and also about how to manage the crowds of people as they're arriving or leaving events. You know, will there be a, whatever, a traffic manager, which we do have on some synagogues, right? We have somebody who makes sure that everybody disperses and there's not triple parking and all that stuff, double or triple. Anybody else?
I think they I'm sorry. I think they sort of mislabeled a couple of drawings that they need to take a look at. I think their elevations were mislabeled. The rear is actually the side and vice versa. So if they could.
They had this problem before.
Yeah, they probably just moved things around and forgot to do titles. And also, I think they were going to give us context photos of the rear and the sides, side
Right,
yards,
yes.
which I did not see, so I think they need to do that. Otherwise, I think you covered everything else.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, I do like the elevation change, and that's a significant improvement.
Right.
I think it actually looks better.
Looks
Oh,
much
much
better,
better.
yes.
More is not always more, as we've learned.
Oh, and Commissioner Ollie Brown wanted to know how long until they grow into the proposed space, since it seems larger than what is needed for right now.
Yeah.
So I, just for comment.
Okay. Next.
Item number 19, 27813BZ, 3556 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, I thought the applicant was very responsive on this. They brought the height of the building down to 30 feet from 32 feet. The attic section was significantly reduced in its massiveness. The roof line modified, in particular at the rear, where it really no longer reads like a third story. It really slopes back. It's shallow. They reduced the level of floor area that they're asking for slightly, but nevertheless, I thought they also, in the statement of facts, were very responsive to each of these questions. They went through how they accomplished it and what the apparent, because when you look at the floor area, for me, it's what does the massing look like on the street. I can't tell what a .94 building is, but I can tell whether it's too massive for the neighborhood, and I think that they really addressed that concern in the statement of facts. They proposed the proposed slight reduction in the side yard width complies with the combined total of 13 feet. The interior partitions were clarified on the drawings because before it looked like they weren't gutting the building, but actually they're gutting the building. And then we asked that they support the argument for the 20-foot rear yard at the second floor by providing the dimension from the rear lot line of the adjoining two-story houses, both of which have very reduced rear yards. They provided drawings so you can see better the relationship, but they didn't give us the dimension. However, I thought They went through a very careful description in their statement of facts about the need for the depth at the second floor. They explained that the front yard is abnormally deep, it's 20 feet deep, and that they had thought about extending the second floor forward, but then said, well, that doesn't work with neighborhood character, so it would be worse, and that they really do need this depth to meet the specific dimensional requirements for the bedrooms. And when you look at the bedrooms, they're just bedrooms. It's not like gigantic suites and things like that, so it's not like there's zillions of walk-in closets and things like that. So I was persuaded that that's the only way that they can really accomplish their needs and for that rear yard, but in addition to which there's neighbors who are almost as deep or maybe even as deep. That wasn't what was so clear. Anybody else?
You have said it eloquently.
Yes.
Building my-
I mean, I actually found that statement of facts was really good.
Very-
It was
yeah,
really
very- yeah,
focused
very
on the
thorough.
character, on responding. Yeah, I thought it was excellent. Okay,
Practitioners should take note.
yes, please. A lot of notes. Okay.
New cases on the zoning calendar, item number 1, 6-14BZ, 2525 Victory Boulevard, Staten Island.
Okay, I'm noting that we have, the community board approved on condition that the trash is picked up prior to 11 PM. That seems reasonable. But there were complaints from neighbors about noise and disturbances late at night and bad management of the property. I'd like the applicant to respond to those complaints. And also poor site conditions. I was having a lot of trouble with the analysis, like, is a legalization of an enlargement? It was kind of strange that I don't know, there's a little bit of rambling in the statement of facts. I wasn't sure, like a lot of rambling, actually. So I wasn't really sure what was going on, so that if they could clarify sort of the history and whether anything was built that's not in compliance with the prior grant,
No, they didn't build anything yet.
Okay,
No
no, not...
enlargement.
Yeah, but it sounded a little bit like DOB sent them away and told them that they had to come here. I don't know, it sounded like there was something that wasn't in compliance. If they could just clarify that,
Okay.
already not in compliance. And then if they could provide a planting buffer along the property line that is coincident with all of the residential uses and along the property line that's labeled grassy area, there should be planting there. They need to repair and replace the fence. And I'd like to understand what's happening behind the extended building that they're proposing in the area that faces Montauk. It's sort of now cut off from everything. It seems to me it should be closed off with a fence, and except for an access point, it should be landscaped. I assume sometimes you need to get a vehicle in there maybe to access. There's a remediation structure, which is another question. So in 2009, BSA required that dead trees along Montauk Place be replaced with new trees. Improvements that were located in front of the widening line be moved back, and one curb cut on Victory west of Willowbrook be removed. I just want to find out whether that happened, because it was a mantra repeated in prior approvals, and if it wasn't done, then all of it needs to be done before we decide on this. With respect to Victory Boulevard being a major street, they showed this illegible map of the arterials, and I don't know how they concluded that that one yellowed-in thing was Victory Boulevard, or even that it was designated as a major street. So I think the best way to find that out is to get a letter from city planning. And then I'd like to know what is going on with that remediation equipment that's shown on the drawings, and how long it's there for. Is it a permanent installation? What? and they didn't provide an explanation in the statement of facts for why the convenience store needs to be enlarged if they're converting the service space to store use. Usually, that's all they do. They convert the service space and then you're done. And they didn't discuss the impact on traffic circulation and adequacy of parking after they extend that thing and it removes all of those parking spaces, not to mention that this is a much larger convenience store, and of course the neighbors are really concerned about the store operating 24 hours because apparently it's a nuisance already. So, any other thoughts?
Yes. Oh, the DEC info shows that the large gasoline tanks have been in the ground since 1987. So I was just wondering, they're not going to replace them as part of, rebuilding this site? And they have a truck that, when I was there were 15 vehicles on site, including a large panel truck, which was also in the photos, and a van. It seems that those two vehicles are permanently parked there. They didn't provide any details for the sound attenuation of the HVAC units. And on Montauk Avenue, they do have some large tree-like things, but it's at the base it's all covered with weeds, so they should replace that either with lower shrubs or some sort of ground cover. And one of the trees appears dead. Not the same one that was dead previously.
Different
I think
dead.
they did change those. There were two trees previously dead. This is a new one.
What is it with this place?
Maybe it's leaking from those old tanks.
Right.
Commissioner Otley Brown wanted to know whether the garbage dumpster could be moved further south to be next to the commercial office building.
Anybody else?
As I was comparing the previously approved plan and the proposed plan, there seem to be some pretty large trees that were located between the property on Victory Boulevard. This is lot, I think, to the left of the property. And the proposed plan doesn't show them, so unless the condition of those trees have again been affected for unknown reason. At least from the Google map, they look pretty healthy and nice,
Yeah,
and
nice.
it would be nice to retain them. So I would like to know why those are not shown on the plan, or was that an error? As you indicated, the number of parking spaces as part of the expansion is now going to be eliminated, and that's a concern, given that this will be more used. So we need to understand the traffic flow, the number of vehicles entering, accessing, and distribution of the parking spaces within the site.
So what we're really going to need is some kind of traffic study, because we have to understand how many people are going to come to this facility now, what the turning
Right, and what's
issues are.
Yeah, I mean, are people going to come to this convenience store just for the convenience store, or is it always related to going to the gas station? And even if it is, where will they be parking? And since there is an auto service area, in addition to understanding how many vehicles are there at a given time for servicing versus how many are there to fill up gas and to access the convenience store, I think we need those breakdown and understand how the traffic and the parking space allocation is being put.
Okay.
Item number 2, 13715 BZ, 74-10, 88th Street, Queens.
Okay. We don't have a copy of this, but the community board resolution refers to 3 petitions that oppose this project that contain almost 600 signatures. So there's a lot of community opposition. the community board's resolution cites to past practices at the site, as well as fear about the impact on the community of 700 residents in the dormitory, and they say that the addition is out of character in this small-scale residential area adjacent. I would just like the applicant to respond to those concerns, but I note this is a manufacturing district, it's not a residential district. I'd like to know how the school also responded to the fire danger concerns that were stated in the November 2nd, 2015 vacate order, which gave them 180 days of a partial lift, or of a lift. I'd like to know whether that sort of limitation has been lifted. Have they complied fully? Is the fire department comfortable with this? I saw that there were lots of, let's say, sign-off letters, I guess, from tradesmen. So the sprinkler contractor writes and the alarm guy writes, but I don't know what that really means, if that was accepted by DOB, if there were independent inspections, don't know what any of that stuff is. The statement of fact says that the dormitory complies with the multiple dwelling law and the building code, but I'd like to know what about other applicable codes that pertain to health and sanitation in dormitories, if they could explain sort of what that is. Some of the observations are, for example, that the showers are really far away from the dorm rooms. I don't know what the standards are. I'd like to know if there's a public assembly permit currently for the cafeteria and the study hall. We didn't see on the drawings what the rated occupancy for either of those things is, and how they accommodate all of the students in the program according to the schedule that was provided, because the schedule makes it look like everyone does everything at the same time, except when they break into classes. So that means you've got to have 720 people plus the faculty all in those rooms together. The cafeteria didn't look like it could handle it. The study hall looked like it could, but I don't know, without having occupancy information. We need a trash management program. This is obviously producing an enormous amount of trash. People are living here. And also food management program. There needs to be a refrigerated perishable storage area on the interior of the site. The proposed conditions plans have to include all the floor plans on the site, and both the existing and proposed combined. Sorry, as a request is a change. Yeah, sorry. So what happened was they submitted some pages of existing drawings, and then the pages that weren't existing drawings are submitted as proposed drawings. So you actually don't know what the existing situation is in full and what the proposed situation is in full. So we need a full set of each of those. The statement of fact states that there's an increase, that the increase in dorm rooms will result in a reduction in buses and bus trips. I'd like to know they didn't discuss what the assumed reduction is, and where the buses will be parked when not in use. Yeah, it's not clear, like, do people go home on certain days? Do they have days off where they go home? Do they go home on certain holidays? Like, it's not clear at all. Do they live there literally 365 days a year? I doubt it. So, and then I note that the EAS has some errors. For example, it talks about the proposed use being residential, which it's decidedly not. That seemed like a cut and paste. This description also of the Glendale neighborhood excludes its commercial character, which I found strange because the real neighborhood is this manufacturing neighborhood. And then it doesn't look like a phase 2 was done based on the site's history. Obviously, a phase 2 is going to be required, so. Okay. Okay. Okay, so there's a long way to go on the environmental because the phase one also wasn't properly done apparently, so that should have been, yeah. Anyway, okay. Anybody next?
It wasn't clear to me exactly about their current enrollment and whether they're expanding or not expanding. It seemed that they were saying they weren't expanding, but then they don't really tell us where the students are boarding now, if they have, it seems that they're trying to increase the amount of boarders, but where are they
Well, there's
boarding
a dormitory
others?
now in the building.
Right, but are they also dorming other people outside of, in the area? Is that really the problem, is that they have all of these other sites that they're dorming people, and now they want to put them into one site? Or are they expanding their, dorm presence? Are they saying, we want to attract more dormers, so to speak? So that wasn't clear to me. Also, the site plan extends, 500 feet or so into the interior, and it wasn't clear to me whether the fire department required them to have a fire hydrant, right, within the driveway. I think they might. And whether the fire department was okay with the length of the driveway going all the way back, and whether or not there was enough turnaround space. So if they could take a look at that, that would be helpful. And then explain further about bus drop-offs and how buses and other vehicles would navigate in the site. It seems that there's just sort of this turnaround area in the front, but they also have that back area. So what happens with that? And also to maybe make a little more robust the buffer between them and rear yards of residential.
I didn't see any rear yards of residential.
They do, actually. It's on,
No, so there's a railroad track, the Long Island Railroad, and then across the tracks is residential.
I thought on the, as I'm looking, I don't have the plan up in front of me, but on the left-hand side, aren't they?
Which is the left-hand side.
It's all industrial above, to the
But then-
right of it. And
But
then
then
there's
down,
They have
there's railroad tracks, and then on the other side.
And on the
there's-
other side is-
There's
okay.
residential, and then here it says industrial.
oh, okay, I thought that
So they
was,
don't
I thought
have
that was
any-
residential.
Yeah.
And then
in
the
that little
existing
crook.
residence in the front, I think they're going to demolish.
Yeah, that's just like a little
Okay.
abandoned house.
Yeah. So, okay, then I don't have
Okay.
an issue with that. Commissioner Otley-Brown wants to know, what is the number of students who will initially dorm at this site? And is there any growth projected from the 710 number? I think that was the extent of her questions.
The way I looked at this was that it's two approvals. One is they need the approval of a school in a manufacturing district, which we usually give by special permit, and they should explain why they didn't apply for a special permit, if they're applicable or not, but
I don't think, this isn't a school under the definition, because this is a post-secondary. I don't know that,
It's a school, it's just that I think that there were other aspects of a special permit that they could.
oh, because often we ask them to, they do it both ways to lessen the
We
variance.
usually do.
Because this is
but
just a
doesn't-
use waiver.
We don't believe this would qualify.
This wouldn't qualify
Well-
for a special permit.
It wouldn't qualify,
There's all kinds of problems.
no, because it's got a dormitory, so,
well,
I don't know.
it could
Yeah,
be,
the
no, but then
dormitory we
it's
also
different. But it still is a school in a manufacturing district, and I think they should address the findings of the special permit. The other thing is, they're also requesting an enlargement of the dormitory and the school.
Right.
So I saw them as like two different things. I don't think they gave us enough information for legalization of the use group 3 school by itself. Because they're going from a use group 9 to a use group 3,
Correct.
and we have to give them that approval.
But we don't need to legalize we can look at this as an application, a variance application for a post-secondary school that has accessory dormitory use in a manufacturing district. So they don't need bulk waivers. the only thing.
They don't
is
need
use.
bulk waivers, it's use, but
Yeah.
their C of O currently is not legal. And they can't get a.
Well, their
use
C of O is
group
legal, their
for use-
occupancy isn't legal.
Right. So they need our approval to change their C of O, even if they don't do an enlargement. That's
No.
my understanding.
They would, if they didn't do an enlargement, it would still be an application to, for use.
It'd still be an application for use.
So they need our approval of even their existing facilities.
Right.
So I feel that since it is a school in a manufacturing district, they should address the same findings that are in the special permit, even if they're not going for a special permit, as well as the
The
findings in the
findings in the
variance.
special permit require that you look around the neighborhood to see, to show other places that they look to put the school, and that it's within existence.
Well, some of them, okay, but I'm
Right.
talking about more in terms of traffic and noise and things.
that's a different thing. Okay.
What the neighborhood may have, deleterious impacts on the school.
Okay,
Well, the people
that's
attending the
something-
school. Maybe not that they did a search because they were already existing, or,
Right.
I don't think they actually are within the
Yeah.
required distance.
I think the applicant will have any issue addressing that and can address that, but maybe the applicant can speak to that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I do think they need to show us what's currently there in existence in total, which they failed to do. And then going towards the variance, towards the enlargement, they need to show us a full, I think, programmatic needs analysis in terms of their proposed enlargement. But we don't really know what's there already. They didn't discuss it very much.
But they
In
did
terms of how the
provide plans.
classrooms,
Yeah.
in terms of how the classrooms are used, how often they're used, times of day,
Right.
what grades are in there. So, and, it's a converted factory that was converted to a trade school. Now we're converting it to a school. I think they have to go through a full, hazardous material analysis and see what's there, including the existing
Sure.
buildings, not just the ones they're adding to.
Right. Well, that's the phase one did that.
Right, the phase
Apparently
two actually
incorrectly.
found some RECs, areas of environmental concern.
Yeah, the phase one,
Did, yes.
yeah. They didn't do a phase two.
They need a phase two.
It was a pipe and machine knitting building.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
So, I think I had a couple of more of a question from a seeker standpoint, and it goes back to the fact that the way the application is presented, it seems like we are just reviewing the proposed expansion of the new facility, and not necessarily requesting a use change for the entire operation.
That's the way you're reading the EAS?
That's the way I'm reading, no, I'm sorry, not the EAS. I wasn't able to open the EAS
Oh,
document, but I'm
okay.
saying even the statement of fact, the way it's written, at least I came off, I read it like the request before us is only for a use change for the proposed expansion and not for the existing, and I'm assuming it should be for the entire
It's for the whole
facility.
thing, yes.
And so the statement then needs to clearly talk about everything, the existing and the proposed.
Yes.
And since I was not able to open the secret document, there was some technical glitch, I couldn't open the secret, so I wasn't sure what it analyzed. And my question is, will the secret then be evaluating the existing facility as is today, and then compare the proposed change in use? And this goes back to what Commissioner Montan is saying in terms of the traffic impact. What is the current use? Are we going to analyze it? Is it as it's today, or is it?
No, because that's an illegal use, it has to go to the use group 9
So
trade
which
school.
would be a trade school. So let's say the trade school is a legal operation, and
Right.
so analyzing at trade school as an existing and then comparing it to the proposed, which would be combination of the existing operation plus what is going to be expanded, and
Right.
what is the traffic impact as part of the differences. I definitely did not get a clear understanding of the number of faculties, staff, administrative that is going to be using this facility? Will they be staying there? If they will be coming to the site, what's the daily hours of this travel pattern? Are they going to commute by public transportation, by private vehicles, or by buses? Because that also goes towards the traffic analysis.
Right.
And which again goes back to the question of, by adding the dorm, the number of the application states that by providing these additional dorms on site, the number of bus trips to the site will reduce significantly. However, at the same time, the application is requesting an additional curb cut to allow for a bus movement. So I don't think that all the pieces of the puzzles are in place, and we need to understand the relationship of each one of them. There is a beautiful community garden in front of the property, and that is going to be reduced by this new curb cut that's going to be provided. And I would like to know what is the existing area of the community garden, who maintains it, and is it open to the community, or is it just for the school? And is there a possibility to provide an additional space, the lost space from this, that would be taken away by this new curb cut, if that can be accommodated somewhere on the site?
Don't know who's, I think it's their property that they just have as a garden. I don't know.
I don't know. I can quickly
Good
address
gesture, it's a good.
the environmental. They analyzed a no-build as an as-of-right.
Yeah.
Sort of, it's basically what they had on the site. And
Which was
then
what? The
trade school.
the trade school, the trade school.
With 320 dorm rooms.
That's
No, I
Yeah.
don't believe that they
It
should
should
not
be.
be evaluating illegal uses on the
But,
site.
well, no, the C of O says they have, it does,
It's not permitted by zoning. If it does, we're gonna
Should not.
have them
Dorm
amend
is
that.
not permitted.
It's not a
an
permitted.
accessory unit.
I'm not gonna, allow buildings to sort of circumvent what
Right,
zoning
okay.
does. I mean, we have our, seeker doesn't allow you to analyze illegal uses as part of it, as a right, unless it's existing and somehow pre-61. And then it compares the increment of just basically the project that they have, which is both the legalization of the existing and the expansion. So it's just the project, as if it were just one entity.
okay, thank you. Okay. Anything? Okay.
Item number 3, 23615 DZ, 1677 George Street, Queens.
Okay, we need a community board recommendation. So there's a mistake on the statement of facts about the amount of, as of right floor area and proposed floor area. It says there's 2,500 square feet, when in fact it's 4,000 plus. So that just needs to be corrected. The site, I think the site is uniquely shallow, at only 44 to 46 feet, except for the adjacent, and the only other one that's similar is the adjacent corner lot, which has a different kind of condition because it's a corner lot. So it's really oriented the other way, actually.
Right.
And there's one other site within 800 feet that has that. And it's one of only 11, and it's also one of only 11 lots on the block to which the 20-foot setback rule that applies to M zones, bordering R zones, applies. And the adjoining properties have no front yards or very shallow front yards. So I thought all the findings were made quickly.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cut and dry.
Yes.
Yeah. And surprisingly, it's not a residential use. What do you know? In the manufacturing district, there are actually artist studios. Yay!
Commissioner Otley Brown has some comments. Let's see. At the front yard study, can you specifically talk about the other properties that border on the R district like this property? In the financials, basically the layout and larger floor plates of the proposed is a better investment because of the lower building, larger and varied size, well-lit studio spaces. The proposed will appeal to more artists, will be completed sooner, and will lease up faster. It will have lower soft costs, less income for vacancy or lease-up time, and be able to command higher rents. These should be the source of the variations between both scenarios. Unfortunately, the report does not capitalize on these distinctions. Instead, it makes adjustments that aren't consistent and don't adequately tell the story. For instance, site value. There are zoning adjustments to reflect that the subject allows for residential use. However, it is as per discretionary action, so this should be taken out. However, it is, however, retail lease adjustments, negative 5%, for asking status immediate availability. However, no similar adjustment for studio comparables, asking status immediate availability, or residential apartment adjustment for studio residential comparables asking status immediate availability. So I think what she just means is that they're not consistent with what they're actually comparing. Residential leases, studio apartments are used as comparables, and the rent for both caretaker apartment is set at the same $1,550 per month. They state that as of right studio is larger and has outdoor space, but it is located on the 4th floor, so that cancels out the benefits. So it should rent for the same amount as the proposed smaller studio without outdoor space. Not enough detail to be convincing. Also, the restricted use of these apartments for a caretaker would surely be a limitation on how quickly this would rent, or its marketability and ability to get a market rent tenant. However, this is not mentioned or adjusted for. Parking space. The average adjusted price is $222 a month, yet they set the indoor space at $200 a month and then adjust that further downward to $175 a month for the outdoor space. Firstly, why isn't the proposed at $222 a month like the average adjusted price? Secondly, the outdoor space has a 12% deduction from the price used for the indoor space. This is not consistent with the outdoor comparables, which are only adjusted for a negative 5% for the fact that they are outdoors. I would think that the proposed space should be $222 a month, and the outdoor space should be 5% less at $211 per month.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Item number 4, 24715 BZ, 135 Plymouth Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, we have the certificate of appropriateness from LPC. We do need DOI sign off. I didn't see that in the folder. They did provide elaborate acoustical detailing. I don't know to what extent the engineer who did that work has experience with other spin studios, but we've seen success with the box in a box detail, so I hope that this one is at least as good as box in a box. This seems like a very elaborate set of details. But this particular spin studio, it's a new kind, has the added issue, it's got an IMAX sound system. So I actually went to an IMAX film not too long ago, and it's loud. And, you know, the whole idea is that the walls vibrate, so you feel like you're kind of in Sensurround, right? So they actually have a bigger issue with vibration, and it seems to me there should be some type of sound limiter. I don't know how that works with the concept, but they really do need to keep the noise and vibration levels caused by both the cycles, which are enough to vibrate intensively, and the speakers down to code and reasonable vibration levels. But this is a legalization. It's been operating for 2 months. So I'd like to know whether there have been complaints, and specifically whether building residents were advised of this hearing. because we have experience with another one of our PCEs where, of a building of this type, people on the 6th floor could feel it, right? So it doesn't mean that just because you don't have residents right above. So they said that there's a courtyard directly above the spin studio, but I actually couldn't understand where the
Right.
courtyard was.
It wasn't clear from
Yeah,
this.
so they
From
really,
looking at the front of the building, it doesn't look like a courtyard.
right.
It's an inner,
It's
Oh, yeah,
there's an
I
inner
guess-
court
through
someplace.
that, and there, in that building, and there is that
Oh,
courtyard.
okay.
And I still couldn't visualize it where it is.
They
so I
didn't
think-
show us a section that made clear, and, you know, just some dash lines on the floor plan would explain where the spin and where the courtyard is. The fire department had comments. They just said that they have no objection, provided that proof of inspection, approval of the sprinkler and fire alarm systems are provided, so we do need that. Anybody else?
Well, I thought that since they're now open, I was wondering if they had done any, noise or vibration analysis to see how well their acoustic detailing works. I think the building is still in the process of being converted to residential. I'm not sure if anybody's living there, but they are like just slightly under,
they're there.
offset from the Manhattan Bridge, which has a elevated train going by, so
They're in competition.
minor noise.
It's a very interesting building. It has like, it's kind of a live work art space type of thing, and there are people living there, so it's a combination of both. And you're right, the noise from the Manhattan subway, the subway on the Manhattan, that kind of overpowers everything else.
The plans indicate that there's a subtenant, and I'm wondering if that's part of the PCE, or is that another entity altogether? It's within their PCE space, but it says
Oh, yeah.
subtenant,
So
6
that, yeah.
persons. So, what is that?
Okay.
Item number 5, 25615BZ, 5602 Roosevelt Avenue, Queens.
Okay, we have fire department sign off, we still need Department of Investigation. My only question was that the plans make reference to a demising wall between tenants, but as far as I can tell, the PCE occupies the entire building, so I don't know what they mean by that. Anybody else?
Just if they could check their zoning analysis, it says that at the present, there's 0 square feet in the building, and that they're permitted 64,600 square feet, which neither seemed correct.
Next.
Item number 6, 2016-4132BZ, 513 and 515 19 West 26th Street, Manhattan. The Avenue School.
Okay, we do have a certificate of no effect from Landmarks about the interior work. I know this project well because I actually was on the Landmarks Commission when this was reviewed, so, and I've seen it up, which is why I was so confused by the statement of facts. Statement of facts kind of alternately makes you think that it's under construction or it's a proposed enlargement. It describes the building as a 7-story building stepping down to 4, but the C of O says it's a 3-story with a 3- and 6-story building. It's just, the site plan shows it's a 3-story to 6-story with a 4th and 7th floor penthouse. Somebody has to decide what the actual floors are. The area chart on the floor plan is also confusing. It says there's no basement or first floor in the section in that the shorter building, and I don't understand that. It sounds almost ontological. It's like it's like, how in the world are you get born onto the second floor? Like, how does that work? Let's see. Also, when you look at the floor plans show clearly there's a cellar and a first floor. The floor plans speak, but the chart is confusing. The proposed occupancy is actually spanning the 2 buildings, 513 and 515 to 519, which you eventually figure out in the statement of facts, but it takes you a long time to get there. I think one of the reasons is that the tenses in the statement of facts keep switching between future and past, and then treating the past as if it's the future and vice versa. No existing plans were provided of the penthouse level. We only have the cellar 1, 2, 3. The fourth level is on top of 513 is actually existing. That's why this is so confusing. There's some kind of shading that's supposed to mean something, but it was illegible on the electronic copies, so it wasn't helping me figure anything out. The existing plan set needs to be complete. It needs to be cellar to 7th floor, and the proposed plan set also needs to be complete, cellar to 7th floor. Then we can easily compare what we have and what we're getting. And the job is on BIS, the job is still open, but it looks like the work is complete unless all I'm seeing is the shells when you see it from the street, and there's still a lot of interior work. For example, also the statement of fact states that there is a working sprinkler and fire alarm system for both office and educational occupancy, but then says that the fire alarm application hasn't been approved. So then I don't understand. It was filed in May as an alteration 2 with no change in use. So why can't that be approved as an office use? I'm always confused about how people file these things, just very confusing. So with respect to the actual application of the students using that floor, the 4th floor, I'm super uncomfortable with the idea of 9th to 12th graders riding an elevator with strangers to their class. I remember what it was like to be a 9th to 12th grader. We were not so mature, as it says in the statement of facts. Bad things happen when you're riding around with strangers on a regular basis. The school needs to add a teacher or a monitor who accompanies them in the elevator, and a crossing guard needs to be devoted to the students who cross 26th Street as opposed to the ones. No, they said it's a 10th Avenue crossing guard. And one crossing guard can't handle 2 directions. You need a 26th devoted and a 10th devoted.
Okay. I thought it was only one street they had to cross.
No, so there's a crossing guard that brings kids across 10th Avenue from like the subway or wherever they live to the east, right?
Nobody
But
comes across the 20th.
There-
I read that too.
Yeah.
You see that somebody helps you across 26th
Right,
Street.
because they said the students are mature enough to make their way. So that means there's no crossing guard, right? Anyway, I think there needs to be one. And also, I actually think with respect to the elevator, and I know this building because it's a gallery building, how in the world can the galleries compete with 70 students arriving at the peak late morning and midday, more importantly midday like at 11:30, when the gallery's in full operation and you've got 70 kids in the lobby waiting to get on an elevator that probably only handles 8 at a time or something like that. It seems to me that the students, all but the ADA access, the students should be using the staircase. There's a staircase that opens directly to the street, and they should come right into that staircase with, maybe they use a key card to get in, maybe there's a monitor there that gets them in, then they're not riding with strangers, and they're not clogging up the lobby. At the end of the statement of facts, it states that the school has demonstrated in the past that exchanges between school buildings and other classroom facilities have worked well. I don't know what they're talking about. What are they talking about? Anybody else?
I too had some questions about security and whether or not there was an actual physical presence of someone in the lobby as kids came in. Also, it appears that the egress stairs are used for all uses throughout the building, right? Yeah. So one could conjecture that you've got kids also going up and down those stairs. So again, how do they anticipate segregating their use from the rest of the building's use? Dara asks, what are those terraces for? I think maybe fearing that kids are going to be jumping. But But, and then I also questioned their calculations for the egress stairs. They say 180 persons per stair, but it didn't seem that they gave us the occupancy load for the entire building, because that would be for the entire building, including their 100 and change people on the 4th floor. So I think they just need to clear that up, but definitely talk about segregating the kids from the rest of the uses.
They gave us a copy of the C of O, which lists dated 1925, which lists factory use. So I wanted to know if they had done a phase 1, and if there were any areas of environmental concern regarding the conversion.
I don't, let's see, because this probably was just done as an EAF, right? It's just a conversion, it's just a conversion of a use,
Yeah.
and the area is under 10,000 square feet, right? I think so.
It's not a yeah. Yeah, it's a temporary use, and there's an existing building.
So it was an EAF, but that doesn't mean that
Just I'm concerned whether the existing C of O lists office use or factory use.
Oh.
Because they submitted to us,
No, it's the existing C of O's factory use.
right, so
And then
it's
the-
actually being converted to offices also.
Right.
Yes.
It's been offices for a long time, but not on the C of
It's
O.
not on the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Do the conversion for.
Right, okay. Right, okay.
I think reviewing the prior BSA resolution, the issues that have been raised holds true in this expansion, even in this temporary relocation, even though it's temporary and it's only for one floor. It's, again, as you have all mentioned, issue of securities, separation of kids from other occupants of the building, and the street crossing. Those are my main concerns.
Good. Thanks.
Item number 7, 2016, 4154 BZ, 3 through 42 Flatbush Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, we have Department of Investigation and Fire Department, but we don't have Community Board. I'm just concerned about the adjacent tenancy, since the spin studio is above other uses. There's also sort of, it seems like they're putting the spin studio in the second floor that doesn't have any adjoining tenancy. It's just they're building a second floor and there's no additional tenancy. I'm just curious what the exterior wall construction is. I mean, is it like a lightweight metal frame, or is it something that's really going to be handled to reduce the vibration? Is it like on metal deck? You know, if you think about the cheap ways you could build a second story, and then the spin studio like vibrates it off the space. I mean, so they really do need to provide construction and acoustical details and information about the limitations on the sound system. Anybody else? Okay.
This concludes the public review session for July 18, 2016.